Long, long ago, in a small village by the deep blue sea, there lived a kind fisherman named Tabo. Every day, Tabo would wake up when the sun was just starting to peek over the horizon. He would grab his big fishing net, made of strong ropes, and walk to the beach. Tabo loved how the sand felt between his toes and how the air smelled salty and fresh. Tabo lived with his wife, Nia, in a small hut. Their house was made of mud and straw, and it kept them warm and dry. Tabo and Nia were very happy together. They laughed a lot and helped each other with everything. But there was one thing they wished for more than anything else. They wanted a baby of their own. Every night, before they went to sleep, they would step outside their hut and look up at the sky. The stars twinkled brightly above them, like tiny lights in a big dark blanket. Tabo and Nia would hold hands and pray to the spirits for a baby. One sunny morning, Tabo went fishing just like he always did. He walked to his favorite spot on the beach, where the water was clear and blue. Tabo threw his net into the water with a big splash. Then he waited patiently, hoping to catch some fish for dinner. Suddenly, he felt something big and strong pulling on his net. It was so strong that Tabo had to dig his feet into the sand to stop from falling over. Tabo used all his strength to pull the net back. His arms felt like they were on fire, but he didn't give up. Slowly, the net came closer and closer to the shore. When Tabo finally pulled the net out of the water, his eyes grew as big as coconuts. He couldn't believe what he saw. In his net was the biggest, most beautiful fish he had ever seen in his whole life. It was as long as Tabo's arm and as wide as his chest. The fish had shiny scales that sparkled like rainbows in the sun. Its fins were long and flowy, like curtains made of silk. But what really surprised Tabo were the fish's eyes. They were big and round, and they seemed almost human. For a moment, Tabo thought he saw something in those eyes. Was it sadness? But that couldn't be right. Fish don't feel sad, do they? Tabo shook his head, trying to forget the strange feeling. He was too excited about his amazing catch to worry about silly things like sad fish. "Nia will be so happy," Tabo said out loud, even though there was no one around to hear him. He carefully picked up the big fish and started walking home. The fish was heavy, but Tabo didn't mind. He couldn't wait to show everyone his incredible catch. When Tabo got home, Nia was sweeping the dirt floor of their hut. When she saw the fish, she dropped her broom and clapped her hands with joy. "Oh, Tabo," she cried, "what a wonderful catch! It's the most beautiful fish I've ever seen. We'll have a big feast tonight." Tabo and Nia decided to invite all their neighbors to share in their good luck. Nia ran from house to house, telling everyone about the magical-looking fish and inviting them to dinner. Soon, the whole village was buzzing with excitement. As the sun started to set, painting the sky with beautiful oranges and pinks, people began to arrive at Tabo and Nia's hut. Everyone wanted to see the amazing fish. Children poked it gently with their fingers, giggling at how its scales shimmer. The grown-ups talked in low voices, wondering if the fish might be magical. Nia cooked the fish over a big fire outside their hut. As it cooked, the most delicious smell filled the air. It was better than anything anyone had ever smelled before. The villagers' mouths watered as they waited for the feast to begin. Finally, the fish was ready. Nia carefully cut it into pieces and shared it with everyone. The villagers ate and laughed, telling stories and jokes late into the night. Everyone agreed it was the best fish they had ever tasted. It was soft and flaky, and it seemed to melt in their mouths like butter. What Tabo and Nia didn't know, what nobody knew, was that this wasn't just any fish. It was actually the queen of the river mermaids. She had swum too close to the shore, curious about the world of humans. When Tabo's net caught her, she couldn't change back into her mermaid form. She was stuck looking like a fish. The mermaid queen had tried to talk to Tabo through her eyes when he caught her. She had begged him to put her back in the water, but Tabo didn't understand. He couldn't hear the words in her eyes or feel the magic in her scales. Now, as the villagers ate her flesh, the mermaid queen's spirit was set free. It swirled around in the air, invisible to everyone. The spirit was confused and scared. It needed to find a way back to the water, back to the mermaid world where it belonged. That night, after all the villagers had gone home and the fire had burned down to glowing embers, Tabo and Nia fell into a deep sleep. They were tired from all the excitement and full from the delicious fish. The Mermaid Queen's spirit, still trapped on land, saw its chance. It decided to enter Nia's body. The spirit thought that the next time Nia went to the river to wash clothes, it could escape back into the water. But something very strange and unexpected happened. The moment the spirit entered Nia, she became pregnant, with twins. The Mermaid Queen's plan had backfired. Now her spirit was trapped, split between the two tiny babies growing in Nia's belly. Months passed, and Nia's belly grew bigger and bigger. At first, she and Tabo didn't realize what had happened. But one morning, Nia woke up feeling sick. Her stomach felt funny, and she couldn't eat her breakfast. Tabo was worried and wanted to call the village healer, but Nia just smiled. She had a feeling she knew what was happening. A few days later, Nia's feelings were proven right. The village midwife, an old woman named Adwoa, confirmed that Nia was going to have a baby. Tabo was so happy he danced around their hut, singing at the top of his lungs. Their wish was finally coming true. The whole village celebrated with them. Women came to give Nia advice about being a mother. Men slapped Tabo on the back and told him he would be a great father. Children asked endless questions about the baby. Would it be a boy or a girl? What would they name it? When would it learn to play with them? As Nia's belly got bigger, she and Tabo started to suspect they might be having twins. Nia felt more movement than she expected, and her belly seemed extra large. When they shared their thoughts with Adwoa, the midwife nodded wisely. "I had a feeling," she said. "You are blessed twice over." Finally, the day came when Nia was ready to give birth. The village midwife came to help. Tabo paced outside their hut, too nervous to sit still. He could hear Nia's cries of pain and the midwife's encouraging words. Hours passed, and still, Tabo waited. The sun rose high in the sky and then began to set again. Just when Tabo thought he couldn't wait any longer, he heard a baby's cry. His heart leapt with joy, doing flip-flops in his chest. But then he heard the midwife gasp. There was another baby coming. After what seemed like forever, Adwoa called Tabo into the hut. There, lying next to Nia, were two tiny babies. The first baby, a girl, was strong and healthy. She had a loud cry and bright, curious eyes. They named her Adwoa, which means born on a Monday. The second baby, another girl, was very small and weak. She barely made a sound, and her breathing was shallow. They called her Ama, meaning second-born child. Tabo and Nia were overjoyed to have two beautiful daughters, but they were very worried about little Ama. They called for the village healer, a wise old woman named Ya. Everyone in the village respected Ya. She knew about plants that could cure sickness and had a special connection with the spirit world. Ya came to their hut and examined Ama carefully. She looked into the baby's eyes, felt her tiny hands and feet, and listened to her breathing. Then Ya shook her head and said, "This child's spirit is weak. It's as if something is pulling her life force away." Tabo and Nia were very sad to hear this. They loved both their daughters and couldn't bear the thought of losing Ama. Every day, they prayed to the spirits for help. They asked the ancestors to make Ama strong. Tabo even went to the beach and asked the sea to share some of its strength with his little girl. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Adwoa grew stronger every day. She laughed and played and brought joy to everyone around her. She learned to crawl, then to walk, and soon she was running around the village, getting into all sorts of mischief. The villagers loved to watch her play, saying she was as lively as a monkey and as clever as a fox. But Ama remained small and sickly. She cried a lot and hardly ate. While Adwoa was always smiling, Ama seemed sad most of the time. Tabo and Nia did everything they could think of to help her. They fed her special soups made from the best fish in the sea. They wrapped her in soft blankets to keep her warm. They sang to her and told her stories, hoping to give her a reason to grow strong. Nothing seemed to work. Ama didn't get any worse, but she didn't get any better either. Tabo and Nia were starting to lose hope. They loved both their daughters equally, but it broke their hearts to see Ama suffering while Adwoa thrived. Then one day, everything changed. a traveling storyteller came to the village. He was an old man with a long white beard and eyes that twinkled like stars. The villagers gathered around him, eager to hear tales of far-off lands and magical creatures. The storyteller spoke of many wonderful things. He told of giant birds that could carry elephants in their claws, of forests where the trees could walk and talk, of underground cities made entirely of gold. But one story, in particular, caught Tabo's attention. The storyteller spoke of a wise man who lived in a cave by a big waterfall. This man, he said, knew all the secrets of the spirit world. He could talk to animals, command the winds, and even bring the dead back to life. People came from all over the world to ask for his help. As Tabo listened to this story, his eyes lit up with hope. He squeezed Nia's hand and whispered, "I must find this wise man. Maybe he can help our Ama." Nia was afraid for Tabo to go on such a long journey. The waterfall was many days' walk away, and the path was dangerous. There were wild animals in the forest and bandits on the roads, but she knew it might be their only chance to save Ama. So, with a heavy heart, she agreed. The next morning, Tabo prepared for his journey. He packed a bag with dried fish and fruit to eat along the way. He filled a gourd with fresh water from the village well, and he carved a small wooden fish to carry with him for luck. As Tabo got ready to leave, the whole village came to see him off. They wished him a safe journey and promised to look after Nia and the twins while he was gone. Nia hugged Tabo tightly, trying not to cry. "Be careful," she whispered. "Come back to us safely." Tabo hugged his wife and daughters, his heart heavy with the thought of leaving them. But he knew he had to try to save Ama. With one last wave to his friends and family, Tabo set off on his journey, hoping to find the wise man who could help his daughter. As Tabo walked away from his village, he couldn't help but wonder what adventures lay ahead. Would he find the wise man? Could the wise man really help Ama? And what dangers would he face along the way? With these thoughts swirling in his mind, Tabo took his first steps on a journey that would change his life forever. Tabo walked for many days. The journey was long and hard, but he never thought of giving up. Every time he felt tired or afraid, he would think of little Ama back home, and it gave him the strength to keep going. At first, Tabo traveled through lands he knew. He passed other fishing villages like his own, where people waved and wished him well. But soon, the familiar sights faded away, and Tabo found himself in strange new places. He crossed hot, dry plains where the sun beat down so hard it made the air shimmer. The ground was cracked and dusty, and Tabo had to be careful not to use too much of his water. Sometimes he saw herds of animals in the distance, tall giraffes with long necks, fast zebras with their black and white stripes, and huge elephants with tusks that gleamed in the sun. After the plains came thick forests. The trees were so tall and so close together that they blocked out most of the sunlight. It was cool and damp under the trees, and strange birds called out from high branches. At night, Tabo could hear animals moving in the darkness. He built a fire to keep them away and tried not to feel scared. Then came the hills. Tabo had to climb up steep slopes that made his legs ache. Sometimes the path was so narrow that he had to press himself against the rocky wall to avoid falling. But from the tops of the hills, he could see for miles around, and the view was so beautiful it almost took his breath away. All the while, Tabo thought of little Ama and how he had to save her. When his feet hurt, he remembered how Ama couldn't even crawl yet. When he was hungry, he thought of how Ama hardly ate. When he felt lonely, he imagined Ama's sad little face and knew he had to keep going. Finally, after many days of travel, Tabo heard a sound he had never heard before. It was a low, constant roar, like the biggest wave he had ever heard. As he got closer, the sound got louder and louder. Tabo's heart beat faster with excitement. He knew what this must be, the great waterfall. Following the sound, Tabo soon came to a clearing in the forest. There, before his eyes, was the most amazing sight he had ever seen. Water poured down from high above, creating a curtain of white foam taller than the biggest tree in his village. The water crashed into a pool below, sending up a fine mist that made rainbows in the sunlight. Tabo stood there for a long time, just staring at the waterfall. It was so big and so powerful that it made him feel very small. But then he remembered why he was here. He had to find the wise man who lived in a cave near the waterfall. Looking around, Tabo saw many caves in the cliffs near the waterfall. Which one belonged to the wise man? He decided to try calling out. Taking a deep breath, Tabo shouted as loud as he could, "Hello, is anyone there?"